Hello everyone, I'm Sarah. I thought I would do another sew along today. I usually host a crochet, knitting, sewing podcast, but I have done 2 sew alongs last year. So yeah, I'm about to sew a dress and I just thought I might as well bring you along. So I just wanted to chat to you a little bit before about what I'm doing and how I'm going to make it a little bit different. So what I want to do is make this dress again. Just getting you I'm using the Tilly and the Buttons Indigo Dress. I've made a few of these dresses and over time they've just got a bit tight. But there are things that you can do to kind of adjust, you know, the sizing. So initially with this dress, I thought I'd make a size 6. But what I didn't do was cut out another pattern. I just got my size 5 and then just wrote, what did I write? I think I measured on the pattern pieces, I measured what the distance was between a 5 and a 6. And so I've written on my pattern just to increase around the edges 1/2 to 1 centimetre bigger. So I've done that on all my pattern pieces and this is what I've been left with. The other thing that I did last time was I didn't put any bust darts in. I'm going to just put this down a little bit to explain a bit more. So what I'm finding is that where I've gone a bit bigger here, it's too big on my shoulders. So the arms are hanging off the shoulder. The other thing I realised I did last time is my shoulders, I think I've put them in the wrong place. There's too much gathering and not necessarily on the top of my shoulder. I don't really know how to do major adjustments, as in I'm just literally sort of fitting it to me. The same thing here, look, it's almost like all the gathering is at the back of my shoulder rather than over the top of the shoulder, so I must remember that when I'm making the next one. So I think what I might do, because my kind of shoulder is here, so it probably is about 1.5 centimetres, so I don't think I'm going to change the bodice from a 5 to a 6. I'm going to keep it as a 5, but I'm definitely going to leave the bust darts out because I quite like that feel, and it fits nice. You know, I like that bodice part. I like the sleeve, as in the length of the sleeve and the size of the sleeve, but I think the skirt could be a bit smaller. I mean, again, that is a look, isn't it, being big and gathered, but I think I might just take a little bit of fabric out of my skirt measurements. So this is the Indigo dress and I'm going to make it in some beautiful fabric. I'm just going to take you over. Yeah, so this is the fabric. It is, I think, a vintage fabric. I bought it from one of the knitting and stitching shows. It's cotton. I'm just trying to open it up a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if it's like cotton poplin. It's not super fine, but it's not too stiff either. It's very narrow fabric. Like I folded this in half. I'll just show you here. And normally when I fold my fabric in half, it takes up my whole table, but it is very narrow fabric. So when I want to cut my pieces out on the fold, I should be able to do that. And it is very long. So yeah, I think I must have I think it was about 3 meters. And it only cost, I can't remember exactly, but I do remember at the time, it might have only been £4 or £5 a metre. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to making this. Look at all the different colours, the browns and that turquoise. Yeah, so it's quite autumnal. I've had it for a few years and I really, would like to turn this into an indigo. So here's my bodice piece. I think I've changed my mind. I think what I'm going to do is keep the measurements there as the size 5, but I am going to give myself an extra little bit here and at the bodice and at the side. So maybe that's why it's giving me a nice feel, a nice loose feel at the bodice, but I think my shoulders I need to keep as a 5. My friend made me these lovely weighted bean bags, and when it's cotton fabric like this, it's very stable. I don't tend to pin, I just tend to put my weights around and then cut around. So I'm going to cut my fabric out. So I'm just about to cut my skirt piece, and you can see here it almost fits perfectly on the fold as it is. So I'm tempted to just keep it like that. I think I'll just use all of that fabric, just cut out a big rectangle. There's a little bit of extra, you know, you can see there's some extra around the edge, and I think that will be fine. I just need to make sure it's long enough, so I'm just going to measure this pattern piece against my current skirt and make sure I get the length I like. And I know in centimetres, no, not centimetres, I know in inches how long I want the skirt to be. I try and be really economical with how I'm cutting out. So, you know, so far I've just got a few little bits of scraps, but they are, you know, tiny little bits that you couldn't include in that pattern, but I will use it for something else. I've just got to cut my bias bit out, but I need a bit, to cut it on the bias, I just need a bit more width than that little bit can give me. So yeah, I'm just going to cut 2 pieces of skirts out, and then I've got the sleeves to cut out. And you can see here, look, I've still got quite a bit of fabric. I might cut the sleeves out, not on the fold, but on a flat piece, open that fabric up. I've cut all my pattern pieces out, and I'm now left with the kind of scraps, and I'm now trying to make some bias binding. And the main thing with bias binding is it has to be cut on the bias. So you can see here there's like a right angle, and any cutting then has got to be cut on the diagonal. So it doesn't really matter how long my bits of fabric are. Like so far I've just cut 2 bits out. They're both different lengths, but they are both on the bias. And if I hold it, you can just see there's a bit of stretch there compared to when it's not. So I'm just going to keep going ahead and cutting up bits of bias, and then I can make my bias tape. So here's my bias tape, all different lengths, but all the same width with squared edges, but nice and stretchy. So I've got quite a lot there, so I will turn that into bias tape later. It might even be too much because I only need it on the neckband. These are the tiny little bits of odds and ends that I can't do anything with. And this is nice kind of big square oblongs that I'll be able to do something with, whether that's making in the future patchwork quilts or lavender bags. So yeah, just so out of my 3 meters, that's not bad, is it? Just little bits of odds and ends. Yeah, so now I can get on with the sewing. So I'm just getting a cup of tea. It is a bit chilly in here, but it's such a beautiful sunny day. It's the 1st of February, but it does feel quite spring-like today. Yesterday was a very grey day. So yeah, I'm gonna enjoy being in this room, even if I'm cold, because yeah, seeing the blue sky, that's lovely. So I'm at the point where I've got everything ready, everything is cut out. My sewing machine and my overlocker are here. I'm now going to use one of those little scraps of fabric to do a practice run on the sewing machine and the overlocker, and then I'm set to go. I've also got this ready because sometimes I forget these. My sister bought me these years ago. They're little labels even though it's got knitting needles and a ball of wool, I tend to put them, if I remember, into my dressmaking. I probably don't ever put them on garment, like knitted projects at all. It's funny, isn't it? But I just thought it's, even though I tend to put yarn mugs together rather than two separate words, but it's just lovely. Just feels like, again, me made. I've recently had to buy some new bobbins, just some plain little plastic ones, because I really do like, I haven't got a huge selection of threads, but if ever I buy a dress where I need to have, I've never had brown thread before, I use the Gutermann thread. I never seem to have a spare bobbin. So I'm going to load up my bobbin, do the test run, and then we can get on. Let's have a slurp of tea. I don't know if you can really see that, but again, they're nice. I think they're nice, neat stitches. I think they are. I'll do it again on a 2. I've got it on size 3. Maybe I'll make it a bit smaller, 2.5. Let's do it again. Now I'm just about to do my overlocking, and I've recently been on an overlocking course, and they gave us these threads so you could tell which thread had to go into which part of the overlocker. But I think, or excuse that flashing light, I think those colours will look quite nice. So I'm just going to put my piece of fabric through the overlocker, just as a test. And just as a warning, the noise is quite loud. It will just be for a quick moment. So I find overlocking, you know, I've got lighter overlocking thread and darker, but I think that looks really nice. And don't forget, it will all be inside, it won't be seen. Oh, look at that. In fact, it does go really lovely, doesn't it? So you can see all the threads are lovely and even. There's no bunching along the top of the fabric. Really pleased with that. So yeah, I'm going to use this overlocking thread. No need to change. So the first bit of sewing I'm going to do, I tend to always do my skirt part first. So I've got my skirt and my pocket pieces, and I tend to, well, I put them right sides together at a particular distance that I use. I have shown that on a previous sew along. I've got just a lid that I use that I know works for me and where I want my pockets to be in relation to my body. So I've got both front and back skirts with the pocket piece clipped in place, and I'm going to go ahead and sew that on. I'm just going to record this because this has never happened to me before, but I've just broke a needle. I was trying to flick the threads out the way, and just as I kind of flicked it, I snapped the needle. Wow, that's never happened. Right, off to insert a new needle. Okay, so on my front and back, I've sewn my pocket pieces, And now what I do just to kind of get prepared later on for my skirt is I sew gathering stitches 2 rows along the top of the skirt piece. And I tend to do it on the wrong side because it's a bit lighter and you can see it. And I just try and do 2 evenly spaced rows on the biggest stitch setting, which is 4 for me. And then that will be all ready later on for gathering. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so there you go, 2 rows of gathering stitches all ready with the strings left long for me to pull on and create that gather later on. I'm also in preparation going to do my sleeve head as well. So this is the top of the sleeve. You have one side has 2 little notches and one side has one, where is it? There, 1. And in between those notches, you again do 2 rows of gathering stitches. The 2 notches is the back, the 1 notch is the front. So I'm just going to do that as well, just put the gathering stitches. This all just helps, you know, the thing with sewing is it's all done in parts. And I suppose for me, sometimes I just like doing these little bits to get all prepared. And then when the dress is all coming together, it just seems to be the way I like to do things. This fabric is so lovely, isn't it? For me, it really reminds me of the 70s. I love it. So again, there are my 2 gathering stitches. And now I thought I might as well just sew the sleeves up, which is a really simple process. You're just putting right sides together, and I'm going to clip along that edge to keep them in place. The thing with cotton, it stays, it doesn't really move much, so you don't need loads of clips or pins, whatever you prefer. I'm really enjoying using clips. You know, they don't damage the material, and yeah, they're nice. And sometimes when I used to use pins, it never used to feel as secure as keeping the fabric, you know, together. But like I say, with cotton, it's so easy. So I've got both sleeves ready to go, and I might as well just sew down that edge, and then they're ready to insert a bit later. Right, excuse my hair. I've just popped the top on just to see if I'm happy with the fit. So this is fine round here, and now I'm thinking, look, it is over my shoulder still, so that was still sticking with the size 5. So I'm wondering if, like I say, when I put the sleeves in, will that make the sleeves again off the edge? But regarding the, I'm glad I didn't put any bust darts in. There is space. Yeah, it feels like it fits, and I'm not going to show you too low down, but just at my waist there's room. So again, when I put that gathered skirt on, yeah, I think I'm all right with it. I'm just now thinking, oh, I wonder if I need to just take off a little bit of fabric here, because already it's over my shoulders. Fabric is lovely though, isn't it? I can't wait to see it all together. Yeah, I think I might have to do that. I might have to just snip off a half a centimetre just to give me a bit, so it's not so over my shoulders. So this is not a technical sewing tutorial, it's just showing you what I do just to make adjustments. And so I literally just cut about 1 centimetre and then kind of graded it in to about there. So I didn't cut the whole way round, it was just literally just get off a little bit off there. And I did the same here, just cut about 1 centimetre and kind of graded it to there. I'm now at the point, and this is often where I end up forgetting about it, for I think I should put my name label in. I think I should do it now, because then then I've got to put my bias binding in. Oh, I'm not sure. But that's where it will go, and I kind of fold those little edges in. Oh, I need to have a little think about that. I need space for the bias binding, and then maybe that goes on top of the bias binding. Mistake, I'll do that later. So what I've decided to do next is to make my bias binding. And I'm just going to show you how I do that. So I join the lengths of fabric right sides together at a 90-degree angle. I then put a pin in to make that kind of diagonal, and that is where I will sew. When you sew, you then fold your fabric over, and then you go to the next bit. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just going to attach all of my lengths of strips of fabric, and then I can go ahead and sew them. It's such an easy thing to do and to make, and really finishes off your edges really neatly, especially compared to, for me, compared to facings. When this fabric, it's not, you know, it's not thick fabric, but it just doesn't need, you know, another extra piece of fabric. Oops. Yeah, so I love the look of facings, and again you can, not facings, bias binding, and again you can get contrast bias binding as well, just to add to that individual design. Okay, so I've sewn them all together, and it creates this long line, and you can see here there is a bit of stretch. I'm left with these little triangles that I sewed, so I have to just snip those and then iron it and open up that seam allowance part. And then you create the bias binding by just ironing it in on itself. You kind of create, I might show you that in a bit more detail, but if I show you here, you kind of iron in from each edge into the centre all the way down. I have got a little tool that I can't always get to grips with, but I might try and use that. And then I think I might attach the bias binding now to my top, and then it's just a matter of joining everything together. Look at that lovely blue sky. It's still freezing in here, but oh, it's lovely. Okay. So you can see here how I've ironed out those little seam allowances, and now I need to fold it in and turn it into bias tape. I'm just going to finish off my edges. This is the shoulders of my bodice, and I'll also do the side seam edges. Just overlock, and that gives a really professional look and stops any fraying. You can just see it just gives such a lovely finish, and then I'll iron that so it irons out flat. I'm really pleased I've used this multicoloured overlock, it's lovely. Right, I'm just going to finish off with the other shoulder seam and the side seams. I'm now going to clip my bias binding in place. I'm going to start off right sides together at a shoulder seam, so then it's kind of an invisible join. I kind of unwrap my bias binding so that I have a raw edge against a raw edge, and that's what I'm going to clip round in place. I'll do that now. I haven't sewn my name label in yet. I just thought I'd get this in just to make sure I've got it in the right place. Hope that makes sense what I'm doing. So I'll show you it when it's all clipped in. So I've clipped in place all of the bias binding. You can see I've opened it up a little bit because that's a fold, and I've opened this fold and there's a crease. You're not going to really be able to see it, but there's a crease all the way down. But the raw edges are next to each other. So I'm now going to sew along that crease line, and then once it's sewn in place, you kind of fold it over onto the inside, and it just creates a lovely neat edge. And hopefully there'll still be a little gap there for me to sew in my name label. I'm now going to sew in my name label, because I know that when I turn the bias binding over, it will hide all of the stitches. So I'm just going to sew all the way around the whole edge. Right, I've made another little mistake. This is the thing with any making, isn't it? You think you know what you're doing, and then you realise you've made a mistake. So I was saying about sewing in my name label, because then it would hide the bias binding, but the bias binding is actually shorter than the label, which would mean as I sew my bias binding, I'd have a long line throughout the middle of the label. So I'm just going to unpick the label and then do it again. But otherwise I'm all ready to go. This is kind of what it's going to look like. It's just such a lovely, it's not a rolled edge, it's just literally folded. See, there's no kind of all concealed seams, and it's a really lovely finish. Right, so let's unpick that name label and do it again. I'm now at the point where I am inserting my sleeves. So I have my bodice inside out and the sleeve the right way out, so they are right sides together. I've pulled on the gathering stitches, and I'm trying to ensure that all those gathers are going to be at that shoulder seam kind of equally, so they're not sitting beyond it or in front of it. And I'm just working my way around now, just clipping it all in place
making sure it all fits. Pull the gathers a bit tighter if it's a bit too baggy. But it looks like it's nearly there. I think I'm nearly there. So for me, I really just need to make sure I get that gather in line with that seam. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one and fit the other sleeve, and then I can sew them in place. And then nearly, I think that is the bodice finished. We're on the home stretch then, just to attach the skirt. So yeah. For those of you that love Alfie, there he is, sunbathing. It's getting nice and warm in here now. You right, Alfie? Good boy. Right, I've just had a quick try on, and I'm really pleased with it. It's looking lovely and flat around the neck. The sleeves look lovely and even. So I'm really pleased. I kind of just chopped that little centimetre off. I'm really pleased with it. What do you think? I'm just going to go down a little bit lower just so we can, so I've got a pair of tights on here. So yeah, I've just got to get the skirt on. Now often when you put the skirt on, it does seem to, you know, pull it down a bit. So it might feel like it's a bit short, but it will be fine when that skirt is on. Yeah, and I'm glad I didn't need any bust darts. It's fitted enough but loose enough as well around the waist. I've got really long sleeves at the moment, but like I say, I'm going to be doing something different with them. I don't know whether to try a bit of shearing or just do my normal elasticated casings. But I'm really pleased with the fit. I'm going to have a cup of tea now and then attach the skirt, and then it will be a dress. Oh, I hope you've enjoyed it. I don't know, I'll have to go back and have a look at the little videos, but sometimes it's just nice to see a bit of the process, isn't it? So yeah, I'm really pleased. The sun has come out, it's boiling, got the doors open, Alfie's sitting outside. Yeah, catch up in a bit. Right, so I'm just having my cup of tea, and I just thought I'd show you what I've done as well. Oh, sorry, that sun is so bright. I've turned it inside out, and I've now finished off the side seams with my overlocker. Let's show you. It just gives that lovely neat edge. And I've also done the same around the sleeve, as in the where the sleeve joins the bodice. So then it's all no exposed seams, no unraveling, and I'm really pleased. So yeah, label on. I realised when I watched back on a video I'd put the label on the wrong side anyway. It's meant to go on the inside of the fabric, and I'd sewn it on the outside, so I'm glad I took that off and didn't work that out later on. But yeah, it's looking lovely. Like you say, it's inside out, but again, it's all neat, all the bias binding. See what a lovely finish that gives. Bias binding, all your overlocking. Yeah, really happy. So that's the bodice completely finished, apart from the elasticated wrists. I've now got to finish off the skirt. So like at the beginning, I'd attached the pockets, and now all I need to do is attach the front part of the skirt to the back part of the skirt and sew the side seams. And once I've sewn the side seams, I'm then gonna gather the waistband, so pull on them gathering strings, and then I can attach it to the bodice. So nearly there. Right, I'm gonna start clipping the back to the front. the skirt is attached to the bodice. I feel quite happy. I've not looked at it in a full length mirror, so I've just literally put it on and I thought I'd just show you. So you've seen the bodice and the sleeves. It all fits nice there. Here's the skirt attached, gathered. I don't know what it looks like at the back, but pockets. Oh, look at that sunshine. It's definitely an autumnal looking dress, isn't it? But yeah, I really like it. So weirdly, I thought I got the length right on the, when I measured it compared to another dress I've got, but it's far too long. I don't want it that long, probably like mid calf, so I need to go round and measure and get that length right. Yeah, because I can't literally see, I'm wondering whether, it's always a bit of an issue, like, not an issue, but when you do your gathering, you're making sure it is all gathered nicely and not bunching. What does it look like? I might go out in the garden where it's lovely and sunny and do a little video as well. So yeah, at least I've got plenty of length to play with to sort out my wrists and the length. So here I've turned the hem twice. I turned it over about 1 centimetre the first time, and then I measured all the way round from this waist down to 32 inches, and I just did that all the way round because sometimes it's a little bit uneven, you know, your edges, so it's just making sure every few inches you measure from the waist down. The last thing I need to do as well, I just end up overlocking this waistband, and that gets rid of all of that roughness and makes it a bit smaller so it's not too bulky, and again gets rid of all of the loose threads. So yeah, I'm just going to sew up the hem, do the overlocking, and then it will be the wrists. So I've just turned the dress inside out, and I've turned the sleeve end cuff over once and twice, and I'm now going to sew around but leave a bit of a gap to thread some elastic through. So my dress is finished and I'm really happy with it. I'm always a little bit critical, you know, but just generally I think it's a nice fit. Yeah, what do you think? I think seeing it in the sunshine and the colours, that was really lovely. I'm really happy with the sleeves. I think that is a bit of a better, I've got a better fit, hopefully, over the shoulders. Yeah, I like all the bias binding and the neckline, and I'm just getting used to wearing dresses that are a longer length. Historically, all the dresses I made generally have been about on my knees, and sometimes I feel that it's a little bit too short for me. I would like them a bit longer. I do wear my dresses as well all season, so I would wear this in the summer and in the autumn, so with thick tights or with bare legs. So yeah, overall I'm really happy. It's been a lovely make, only a couple of mistakes along the way which I was able to rectify. I started, I think, this morning about, I think it might have been about 10:15, and it's 4 o'clock, and in between that I've had a cup of tea, some toast, and done the school run this afternoon. So yeah, I generally can make a dress in a day. The kind of the anatomy of a dress, or the way I make, you know, a fitted bodice or a bodice and a skirt, is pretty straightforward for me now, but there's often just little tweaks I need to make just to make the fit a bit better. But overall, yeah, I think I'm happy. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed it. Like I said earlier on, it's not a tutorial. I'm not trying to teach you the right way of doing things. This is just how I kind of muddle through and eventually, yeah, make my own clothes. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll try and put some photos or videos of it on a hanger, swinging in the breeze, in the sunshine. The sun is just setting. But yeah, it's been a really lovely day. I've really enjoyed this sew along. Hope you have too. And see you soon.